This day is brought to you by Progressive. Are you driving your car or doing laundry right now? Podcasts go best when they're bundled with another activity, kind of like Progressive home and auto policies. They're best when bundled too. Having those two policies together makes insurance easier and could help you save. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save nearly $800 on average. Quote a home and car bundle today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $793 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avergan. This day, November 12th, 1970. I'm not sure what it says about our listeners, that this is one of the most requested stories that we have heard about and not gotten to yet on this show. But this day, November 12th, 1970, on a remote beach south of Florence, Oregon, a 45-foot-long sperm whale has washed up onto the beach. The town is confused about how exactly they are going to get rid of this thing, and they decide that the best answer is to blow it up. And not just blow it up, but to blow it up using way too much dynamite. I don't know. I don't need to say much more beyond that. This is the exploding whale in Oregon from 1970. There are videos of it floating around on the internet. It is one of the most miraculous things in American history. And let's talk about it here, as always, Nicole Hemmer of Vanderbilt and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
Happy Exploding Sperm Whale Day.
May we all commemorate it every year.
We will get to how this story got kind of rescued and sort of has become this sort of interesting meme. A lot of it is due to the humorist Dave Barry, who kind of discovered this and started writing about it. And he's referred to it the same way that I referred to it in the intro, as kind of maybe the greatest thing that's ever happened in American history. So, we'll see if you agree. But I don't know. How does a 45-foot sperm whale end up lodged on a beach and thrust the town into figuring out the hell do we do next?
I think this is maybe the least weird part of this story. Whales die, and sometimes they wash up on beaches. Now, they didn't often wash up on these Oregon beaches, and so this particular town of Florence had not had a lot of experience disposing of sperm whales. It had happened before, but it was like, you know how something happens and it's kind of too long ago for anyone to really remember or agree on how you dealt with it?
Yeah.
That's what was happening with the whale cleanup.
Wait, are you implying that in places like, I don't know, Hawaii or Costa Rica or whatever, there are entire departments in the local police force and protocols devoted towards whale disposal,
I assume that there probably are.
Okay. Fair
Sure.
enough. We'll see.
The crazy thing about this is that, the whale itself, I mean, if you've ever seen a picture of a sperm whale, they're huge. They're about 8 tons. What's that, like 16,000 pounds? This is not something you're just going to shove along to the side or something. I mean, it's massive. It's massive. So trying to figure out how you are going to dispose of something that big is no easy task. Even burying it is not even the best of ideas either, because of soil erosion and all that.
Maybe it's one of the best of ideas.
Well, yes. In this case, it might have been a good idea.
Right. But the thought is that if you bury it, right, eventually the tides will then move the sand around and it'll kind of become exposed again. So the thought is we need to smallify this large whale.
Yeah. Shrink it.
Well, the thing was, they could have carried it off the beach.
Uh-huh.
That was one option, but they couldn't find anybody who wanted to do it. So it was not just a failure of imagination. It was also a failure of manpower, right?
Yes.
Will.
Yes. And, so the town does reach out to, well, first off, we should say this sperm whale is a bit of a oddity in town and becomes a bit of a kind of curiosity, and people are showing up and news reports are showing up, and then this will come into play later, but a local car dealership runs car dealership's very entrepreneurial. They run a sort of special against the sperm whale. It's like Whale Days special or whatever, financing or whatever. And so,
a whale of a sale.
It's a whale of a sale.
Whale of a deal.
So the town is kind of abuzz about this. And they do decide to consult some folks from the Navy and some others, and they aren't really sure what to do. And so then they come up with this plan to let's just blow it into smithereens. And the idea is that when you blow something up, it just, I don't know. Is this like
gets
smallified? It gets smallified, or is this like 8-year-old thinking that when you blow something up, it just disappears? But no, the thought is that if it's in these smaller pieces, then seagulls will come and eat it, and it'll wash into the water, and from there. So maybe I see the logic. To me, there's a critical miscalculation. There's a clear critical, as is often the case, there's a critical math error at the heart of this story.
Well, and I think that there's also reading between the lines. There was an engineer who was put in charge of the operation, George Thornton, and he was part of the team that decided they're just going to dynamite this whale. And he had been chosen, he told reporters, because his supervisor was out of town on a hunting trip. And so it does seem you've got a bit of a rogue department here. And they're piling up the dynamite. And they decide on 450 kilograms. So what are we talking about? About 1,000 pounds or so of dynamite that they're just going to stuff under this whale.
20 cases.
Yeah. Just to blow it up, right? And they're really smart about it, right? They put all of the dynamite on the side facing the beach so that it will blow the whale out into the ocean. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good planning.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
So before we talk about what that miscalculation was and some of the other kind of recommendations that they did not heed, let's just cut right to what happens. So Kellie, you have, like many people, gone and watched this video. So talk to me about the footage that is captured by KATU TV in Portland, who comes out for this whale explosion ceremony. And so we have this footage.
The footage is wild because you have all of these, spectators, people who want to see this explosion. I love that the reporter is like, the seagulls are circulating, ready to sort of like get their chomp of the bit of this whale. And when they exploded, I mean, it's massive. It just sand everywhere, this huge sort of like plume. And then you see giant chunks of whale flying everywhere. Like it's literally raining whale. And then you hear someone in the background go, oh, people are getting hit by this stuff. It's landing on cars. It's crushing cars. Like these are not small chunks of like whale meat. This is like the size of a tire. Whale meat falling
from hundreds of feet
the
up.
Sky.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to make sure we have as gross of a picture in your head as possible. Like that big spray wasn't just sand. It was like, somebody described it as a spray of tomato soup, if that helps at all. These are chunks of dead, rotting whale that are just being sprayed all over this beach. And these people who were watching were a quarter mile away, and they're being sort of like overcome by all of this whale dropping down, and it's like thud, 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 thud all around them.
Yeah, people are sort of running out of the parking lot and taking cover, and the TV cameraman's like, what's going on?
They're kids that wanted to see a show. It's bad. It's
really bad. We've seen those videos of people go out to watch buildings get imploded and stuff like that. I would probably go out if this was happening in my little town. All right, so let's go.
Implosion rather than explosion might be the key here.
That's true. And controlled versus, hey, here's some dynamite.
You're used to hearing my voice on the world, bringing you interviews from around the globe.
And you hear me reporting environment and climate news. I'm Carolyn Beeler.
And I'm Marco Werman. We're now with you hosting The World Together. More global journalism with a fresh new sound.
Listen to The World on your local public radio station and wherever you find your podcasts.
I guess we got to lay out why this didn't go well. And the main one is way too much dynamite. So there is a man who we will walk onto stage here by the name of Walt Umenhofer. And Walt was a military veteran who had some explosive training, who happened to be kind of in the neighborhood when he kind of hears word of this. And he tries to get in people's ear a little bit and say, like, this is way too much dynamite. But obviously his advice does not get heeded. But according to Walt, 20 sticks of dynamite, 4 kilograms, would have done it. They use 450 kilograms of dynamite. So 100 times too much dynamite.
Talk about overkill.
Yeah. And the effect of this, in addition to kind of shooting the whale muck and chunks way into the air, is that what actually happens is there's just a massive explosion down, and it creates this huge crater in the sand. And so even kind of the baseline goal of, like, we want to explode this thing and shoot it into the water doesn't really happen, because it just blows down and creates this enormous crater.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have kind of solved their problem, because there's a nice big hole to deposit the whale into. But, I mean, I don't think a town should have on hand 450 kilograms of explosives if nobody knows how to use them.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. I still don't understand why they didn't chop it up or bury it or set it on fire, something like, incinerate it, something.
Yeah.
All those ideas seemed better than what they went with. And we should say, we didn't mention earlier, but like the carcass itself, it's rotting. It smells. It's terrible. The smell of the carcass is wafting into town. You drive by that beach, you get a whiff of just rotting carcass. And now, not only do you have rotting carcass, but you have chunks of whale
in your hair.
Lord knows what, everywhere.
I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of planning meetings around this. I was not in the room there, and there's no reporting from in the room. But I do not want to discount the bunch of dudes are sitting around and they say to themselves, it'd be pretty fun if we blew up this whale. Like, I think there's an element of that in this story. And, you can't. So, yes, I think all your questions are valid, Kellie, but I think you can't totally discount. I have that part of me, too, that thinks it would be pretty awesome to blow up a whale with a bunch of dynamite.
Just throwing some sand over it? That's no fun.
Okay, maybe my favorite tidbit from all of this is, so you read the reports of this and you see this guy, Walt Umenhofer. He's the one who kind of said, hey, maybe you should use less dynamite, doesn't get heated. And then you go and you read other articles about the aftermath of this explosion. These whale chunks go flying into the air. They land on cars. Who was quoted as one of the people whose car got demolished by a chunk of whale? Walter Umenhofer. This same guy comes out there. He's like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know. And it's the same guy. His car gets smashed. He's quoted in the paper saying, my insurance company is never going to believe what happened here, but I'm going to file a claim. To their credit, the state of Oregon foots the bill to replace his car. But I love that he's just this through-line character in this. And I will say, I poked around online and found he died in 2016, and I found his obituary online. And his obituaries are full of like these great odes to him. As a person, he seemed like a really great guy, but a bunch of people being like, Walter was the guy with the whale saying you were doing this the wrong way. We'll always remember Walter and the whale. And it's just this nice little... Yeah, he just plays a nice part in this story, and I really was touched by those
I
notes.
love that.
Walter and the Whale is actually a really nice story title.
Yeah, it is. It is. It sounds like a children's book.
Yeah.
It's funny to me because the car really does get crushed. Like,
Smashed.
It's not just like a cracked, window or something like that, or a dent. It is smashed, and it's just like, whoa. I mean, what if someone had been in the car? Thankfully, no one was, harmed or killed. But yeah, this could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Also, just to put that little button on it, how did he get that car? He purchased it in a nearby city where he got it on a get a whale of a deal promotion.
Incredible. It all ties into Walt here. He would absolutely be the star of this little film if it ever gets made.
I know, right?
All right. Final note here, because there's an interesting little kind of story about how this story became so popular. I mean, this is one of those kind of like internet videos that pops up from time to time. So I mentioned Dave Barry, the humorist and writer of the Miami Herald. He somehow discovers this story, 20 years later, in 1990, and he starts to write about it and become, as Dave Barry often is, pretty obsessed with it. And he writes about it a bunch. He mentions it in a bunch of columns. He sort of talks about it as the greatest moment in American history. But it is at this moment where it starts to take off in the internet, and it kind of catches this early internet moment in a really fascinating way.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Dave Barry had a copy of this news footage that everybody watches now, and that's kind of cool. I don't know how he got that news footage, but it's kind of cool. So he writes up this story. It's not entirely clear from reading it when the whale incident happened. So he's writing in 1990. This happened in 1970. But a lot of people who are reading it are like, oh, he's writing about something that happened like last week. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of there's a sense, oh, maybe this is just an urban legend. We folks out here in Florence, Oregon didn't see a whale blow up last week. And as the report gets circulated, Barry's name falls off of it. And so readers start sending him this story about the whale that he wrote, saying, oh my gosh, this is right up your alley. You should write about this.
Yeah, I love that. And in some ways, the video through the mid-90s into the early 2000s, it becomes one of the first viral internet stories and viral internet videos. And the video's been viewed, almost 500 million times at this point.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so I love how it sort of ties.
It is a good entertaining.
It's a great video.
No, it's a great video.
Go check it out.
But I love it.
It's funny. It's cute.
But I love, Niki, as you're saying, this story kind of paints a picture of that kind of turning point from where you couldn't in 10 seconds kind of figure out the gist of a story by searching for it, right?
Right.
All right. I guess the
You've
last
left
thing
out
to
the most
point out.
important
No, I know.
part.
Go ahead.
As you were saying, the most important part to point out here is that sometime during the pandemic, folks in Florence were a little bored in 2020, and they voted. They used their democratic voices to name a new recreational area, Exploding Whale Memorial Park, which I love.
Hey guys, where do you want to go today?
Exploding Whale
Memorial Park.
The EWMP. So if any listeners have been there, tell us what it's like. Tell us what the plaque is like. And other listeners, if you're listening to this right now, we'll send it out on social. There is a great little Wikipedia section for other notable whale explosions. And, this happens from time to time. Now, often it happens when a whale is just sitting there and gas builds up inside and it explodes on its own, right? Which I suppose is part of the problem here. But there also have been other successful explosions and implosions and sort of disposals of whales. But this is certainly the most notable in the United States. And I'm so glad we got to it. And again, I can't tell you how many listeners, and I'm so proud of you listeners, have reached out and said you should do this story. So it's great. So that is the Exploding Whale of Oregon, November 12th, 1970. As we do from time to time, let's also talk about some other stuff that happened on this day. We really love this feature. We're bringing it back. We're going to be putting it into our newsletter. So also on this day, November 12th, 1926, this was the first recorded aerial bombing in the United States. Do you remember this story? In Illinois, there's these two gangs. We did an awesome episode about this, but these two liquor smuggling gangs, the Shelton and the Bergers, and they resort to dropping bombs on each other. The first recorded aerial bombing on U.S. soil, 1926.
And in 1969, on this day, Seymour Hersh breaks the story of the My Lai massacre, which is going to be one of those turning points in the U.S.-Vietnam War.
And in 1975, Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, then 76 years old, retired because of his failing health, ending a 36-year term. We don't see that too much today.
Term limits.
The actual retirement, the proactive retirement. Fair enough. So those are a few things that happen also on this day, and keep sending us those. We want to sneak this into future episodes. We really love doing this. And coming in 2024, we are going to relaunch the This Day newsletter with a real focus on gathering some of the things that happened that day or that week and having people draw some through lines and connect the dots, because this is like our third time around the calendar now. And so I feel like we have some a real opportunity to look at these disparate stories and see what kind of through lines we can find. So if anyone out there wants to connect the exploding whale to the Shelton and Berger gangs bombing each other in 1926, feel free.
Uses of dynamite.
There you go. There you go. All right. Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Our camera stopped rolling immediately after the blast. The humor of the entire situation suddenly gave way to a run for survival as huge chunks of whale blubber fell everywhere. Pieces of meat passed high over our heads while others were falling at our feet. The dunes were rapidly evacuated as spectators escaped both the falling debris and the overwhelming smell. A parked car over a quarter of a mile from the blast site was the target of one large chunk.
Thanks for listening. Our researcher and producer is Jacob Feldman. Our producer is Brittany Brown. Our transcripts, which you can find on our website, are done by Kala Nakua. This Day in Esoteric Political History is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX, a network of independent, creator-owned, listener-supported podcasts. Audrey Mardovich, executive producer, Yuri Lasordo, director of operations. Thanks to all of you who support this show by being members of Radiotopia. Find transcripts, sign up for our newsletter, find us on social, suggest topics, all that and more at our website, thisdaypod.com. See you soon. Support for This Day in Esoteric Political History comes from Odoo. What is Odoo? Well, Odoo is the only software your business will ever need. Featuring a suite of integrated business applications, Odoo connects your business operations together so you can get more done in less time. Odoo has apps for everything: CRM, accounting, sales, HR, inventory, marketing, manufacturing, you name it, Odoo's got it. To learn more, visit odoo.com/thisday. That's odoo.com/thisday.
Radiotopia.